We went on the first Alaska cruise of 2025. In this video, we're going to tell you about our learnings, some of which were surprising.
Hi y'all, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Becky.
And together we're a cruising good time.
We have cruised to Alaska 4 times, and we have made many videos about Alaska, which you can find on our Alaska playlist. However, this year, we took the very first cruise of the year on Holland America, and we had some very interesting findings, and we're going to discuss the big factors in this video.
And the first one of those factors is cost, because it's a lot more economical to go early in the season like that. We went the last week of April, first week of May, saved several $100s per person on the cabin by going that early in the season.
And one of my favorite activities is whale watching. So we've whale watched every time we went, and it's very interesting because we know that the whales migrate to Mexico and Hawaii, and they are just starting to return this time of year, so I was very worried about how good the whale watching would be. And when we were cruising into Juneau, we didn't see all the whales that we're used to seeing when we're coming into port. However, when we went whale watching, the cruise operators, they talked to each other and they found good whales. We still had pretty good whale watching. We saw 4 humpbacks. We saw 8 orcas. It was actually a pretty good day.
It was a really good day. Yeah, it was a good day. And
However, I think this is atypical for what you see this time of year, but we were very lucky.
I think Becky's just very lucky with finding these whales, because every time she's out there, she's had remarkable luck in finding the whales.
So another wonderful thing about Alaska Cruise is wildlife spotting. And I love to see the wildlife. However, this time of year, the salmon aren't running, so the eagles and bears aren't congregating around the creeks where it's easier to find them. And it's very misty, harder to see wildlife. It was interesting that when we got off the ship in Ketchikan, one of the local tour operators offered me a half-price trip for a wildlife viewing tour. And he said it's half-priced because we're probably not going to see any animals, but it's still just an amazing, gorgeous experience. And we saw beautiful photos from some of the other passengers.
Another really fun thing to do in Alaska are the adventure tours, all the adventure shore excursions you can do, like zip lining and rafting. And there was only one rafting tour that we saw offered for the entire cruise, and it was really cold that day. I'm kind of glad we didn't do that because it was 38 degrees.
So no discussion about Alaska is complete without talking about the weather. So if you want to be with the rain, sleet, snow, and high winds, the first cruise of the year is the one for you. However, I did really enjoy seeing all the snow-capped mountains. That was really fun. And on some of our shore excursion, there was snow on the ground where you could walk up, make a snowball or 2 if you desired. So that was kind of fun. So if you live for snow and never get to see it, early in the season might be a good thing for you.
And that's a good segue into our next one, which is Glacier Bay. And Glacier Bay is always fabulous, but I found it really majestic with all the snow. Every mountain had snow on it around there, and it's very majestic. It just seemed grander with all the snow around you rather than just the lush greenery that is normally there.
That's true. And, since it was cold and rainy, there were less people that were gathered around, so it was very easy to find a spot on the rail to view the glaciers. However, one drawback was we did see less wildlife than usual. We did see some harbor seals, and we saw some otters, but it was nothing compared to the number of otters that we've seen in July and August.
One of the things about Glacier Bay, it was very grandiose with all the snow-capped mountains, but because the clouds were lower that time of year, the visibility was much less. So it had a lot of troubles just seeing Johns Hopkins Glacier because a cruise ship can't get closer about 5 or 6 miles to Johns Hopkins glaciers. So there's often a distance and it's kind of misty in there to see all that with the rain and the sleet and everything. But the rest of the time was great. We had great views of Mardi Glacier in there. And overall, it was a great experience.
We sailed in and out of Vancouver, and I will say the weather in Vancouver was absolutely gorgeous. And I really loved that.
We were really lucky there. Vancouver had fabulous weather, both on the embarkation and debarkation days.
It's had fabulous weather every time I've been there. So, Jeff, what do you think? Would you recommend a first-time cruiser goes early?
No, I would not recommend a first-time cruiser goes early. A first-time cruiser needs to go sometime in July or August, It's warmer, there's more wildlife out there, the weather's a little more predictable, and I think it'd just be a better enjoyment for a first-time cruiser to Alaska. If you've been to Alaska several times, you want to see something different, definitely go early, save a few bucks, but just know it's cheaper for a reason. So Becky, what are your thoughts about taking a first cruise of the season to Alaska?
You know, Jeff, I think you pretty much covered it. And we did a whole video on this subject. So we have all the stats, and I knew exactly what we're getting into from, a philosophical discussion. However, when you're actually out there and it's cold and the wind is just whipping through you in Skagway, that's like a whole nother real experience. And then when we were in Ketchikan, the amount of rain, so I know how much it should be, but somehow I wasn't anticipating the impact from that amount of rain with that cold temperature. But I would like to sum up that we had an absolutely incredible trip. I'm thrilled I went. However, unless I found a ridiculously good deal, I'm probably going a different time of year. Of course, any cruise to Alaska is better than no cruise to Alaska. Once again, we have gone to Alaska many times, and we have a playlist with many Alaska videos. We hope you've enjoyed this video.
If you liked the video, please give us a like and subscribe, and please turn on those notifications. It really helps us out.
Until next time, have a cruising good time.